So before we dive further into the future, I suppose it's hard to ignore the impact of COVID-19. So we wanted to kind of cover initially to start with the rise of e-commerce in recent years and the impact of COVID-19. So it'd be great for you guys to share some of the impact that you've had and then what you think coronavirus has done to the e-commerce segment, and then where it's going to be going moving forward. So if we can start with Stephen, I know in terms of RMS, there was a tricky time with a lot of shops closing and then a lot of shops adapting. So if you can kick that off for us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think, certainly from a COVID perspective, it's really accelerated people's thinking across our customer base around e-com. So predominantly our business is 95% face-to-face payments. And obviously with the lockdowns across the UK market, we saw all of our transaction volume drop, and also obviously a lot of problems across our customer base around how they're going to pay for their rent, how they're going to pay for their monthly bills. What we did see probably within April to May is a lot of retailers starting to reopen around click and collect, and a lot of retailers using technology which they would never have done previously. And that also includes pubs and restaurants as well, around click and collect technology. And also when the pubs and restaurants reopened in July, we've seen a big surge in the number of pay at table apps that are out in the marketplace. And what has actually been really interesting, and certainly what we've seen, is that traditionally people think about e-com as just buying clothes, buying a product, etc. on the internet and then getting it delivered. What we are actually seeing is a really big growth in e-com starting to replace face-to-face payments due to COVID restrictions. So one area that we're seeing quite a significant growth in is the pay at table apps, where you can go into a bar and restaurant. Obviously, to comply with social distancing, you can't go up to the counter now and order a drink or order your food. You need to do that at the table. And what we've seen for a lot of our customer base, the cost to actually support that model around extra staff to take orders and basically support a large table ordering system is really prohibitive to their overall business model. And certainly by rolling out these particular pay at table apps, click and collect, etc., we've really seen consumer thinking and also customer thinking and business thinking move more around into e-com, which has been really interesting.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot for that. So have you had an opportunity where you also had to create new products to cater to new environments we're in?
Yeah, definitely so. I think the first thing that we saw from a payments perspective is customers start to enable their card terminals to take payments over the phone. And then secondly, we saw a big rise around the number of customers who are requiring an e-com product. And some of the things that we've done was we revised our pricing concept for our e-com offering to make it easier for customers to set up their website. Historically, similar to other payment partners that operate within the ISO space in the UK, we did used to have lengthy contracts in place that customers needed to sign. So we basically done away with all of them and moved to a pay-as-you-go model, which really enabled customers to come online pretty quickly. We also looked at our overall boarding model as well, about how can we actually make it easy for customers to go online, and also as well, how do we actually support them as well, because it's all very well around customers setting up websites, but if you don't know how to drive traffic to that website, it's no point in doing it. So there's a whole host of value-added services that we brought into play in order to really help our customers get back on their feet.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think it's been a very challenging moment where people have had to adapt quite fast, but I think a testament to companies, businesses, and leaders to carry on adapting their product offerings to ensure the customer is always looked after and we're catering for different and new needs. Marion, if you can go next as to the impact of COVID-19 on Airwallex and where you've seen consumers react and create new environments, how they're trading and looking after the businesses.
Absolutely. So at Airwallex, we were already an online e-commerce supporter. So from that perspective, well, when we saw more businesses moving from offline to online, it actually was playing into an area that we already had a lot of strengths, and it was really great for us to be able to help those businesses with that transitionary period. And just like Stephen was talking about, it was a lot of education as to how you could move into an online payment processing space, how you could set up your website to support online payments, what the different technical pieces were that would allow you to do that in the back end and make it a seamless checkout experience. And so I think that there was a very big learning curve for a lot of e-com businesses in the first 6 months of the pandemic that we were really able to help with. And I think that really fueled quite an exponential growth for Airwallex. On the flip side, a lot of our marketing activities were obviously curtailed. All of the face-to-face events and so on that we would have done were thrown out the window along with everybody else's. And so that gave us the opportunity to sort of settle down and look at our product suite and figure out where the gaps were and how we could build that out to really provide an end-to-end solution, which is what our offering is. And so more recently, we've launched our online payments product, which basically means that you can integrate with shopping platforms, for example, WooCommerce, and that will allow you a really, really seamless way of collecting payments from your customers. There's another feature that we've recently launched, which is Pay by Link. So for some customers who don't have an e-commerce website, but want to invoice customers through, say, a link in an email, that's a really great way of doing it seamlessly. And so we've just been thinking sort of creatively and around the box of how we can create products that help customers transition from the offline world to the online world.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing them, Marion. Yeah, again, I think great ingenuity and adaptiveness on Airwallex's part to try and always keep the customer at the forefront of their product and marketing and sales strategy, which is important. Zain, if you can go next, please.
Sure. I mean, we were one of the very lucky few in the sectors that benefited from the pandemic, really. There was a huge influx of e-commerce brands, as everyone's mentioned, or brands having to pivot their strategies to incorporate an element of e-commerce. I think Marion used a really key word there, education. It brought to the forefront for us the need to modify sort of our onboarding process and really helping people, because not everybody was ready for to have to incorporate e-commerce into it. You need to understand that COVID didn't really cause this. COVID merely accelerated this boom, in my opinion. People who were already prepared and had their strategies in place were definitely fared much better. I mean, even pre-COVID, if we can cast our minds back that far, we were all yearning for really quick and easy solutions. I mean, I was an Amazon Prime customer for over a year before I even realized that there was a TV box sets and stuff available. I literally signed up just so I could get same day or next day delivery. So I think the people that were prepared to head in that way were definitely much better off. And I think that's the key going forward, really, is having an e-commerce strategy in place and understanding that not one answer is the same for everyone. There's not an off-the-shelf solution. Everyone needs to sort of incorporate something a little bit different, which takes care of their needs and, more importantly, their target customer needs.
Brilliant. Thank you, Zain, for sharing that. As they say, preparing is half the victory. So yeah, preparation is key in all times, especially in unpredictable times. Alexa, if you can go next, please.
Yeah, sure. So we obviously saw quite a few of the clients going out of the business, unfortunately. But at the same point in time, I remember like in the May last year, so we started seeing the influx of the e-commerce clients. And that basically was, while a lot of the accountants were busy with the furlough schemes and the government loans, etc. E-commerce was actually growing, and those businesses sometimes couldn't find an accountant who has time to basically help them out while they were growing faster than ever. So we, with our blend of like software solution and people on board, we were able to service those customers. And at that point in time, we decided that we should focus like dedicated resources on the e-commerce product, and hence the pandemic, the whole last year kind of forced us into the e-commerce space. But we are glad we are there, right? So we found that the pain points we are solving to those clients are actually like we are better positioned than anyone else on the market to do it. And hence we, I think we evolved into one of the best e-commerce accounting solution on the market.
Sounds exciting. Yeah, I think a credit to everyone to constantly being focused on evolving and educating ourselves and the consumers on how we can keep improving and staying positive and impactful to grow the businesses, and at the end of the day delivering excellent services to customers and the communities that we're in. Brilliant. Okay, so let's move to now the trying to attempt to predict the future, which is never really an easy thing. But I suppose by collating data, experiences, and a good team, ideas, and so on, we are able to find ways to have a crack at predicting the future. So in the context of predicting the future of e-commerce, Alexei touched on some interesting parts at the start of the talk. So we'll go next to Zain. As for Habu, what do you think the e-commerce landscape looks like, and as to how you think your customers are going to be engaging further so in their activities, and where do you think the future of e-commerce is going?
Sure. I mean, I think success in the future belongs to making your target customers' life easier, sort of reducing that friction in the buying process. So if you're having a personalized e-commerce strategy, I mean, in a time where people are generally attention seeking, like chasing, OnlyFans producing, these sort of people, that these are your target customers. So there's platforms out there that can really personalize the entire shopping experience. They can reorder products on a website, which depending on who's actually viewing, they can using AI. And it's not just about having a website or a Shopify, because unless you're one of the very lucky people who only have one product and no competitors, there's always going to be someone out there who's going to have something similar. So it's about standing out from the rest. So a personalized strategy is definitely the way forward, in my opinion. I just think in a time where sort of Instagram and stuff is so popular, there's so many people out there that are only selling on somewhere like Instagram, which I don't necessarily think is the right answer either. And you've got brands such as like Primark who are defiant in not necessarily wanting to go online, because even though they predicted $1 billion loss, they didn't want to focus selling online, whereas other people are pivoting. I think there's got to be somewhere a meet in the middle kind of strategy, and you definitely have to personalize your experience towards your target customer. That's my opinion.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot for that, Zain. Stephen, if you can kind of add your 2 bits into what the future of e-commerce in terms of your perspective is headed towards.
Yeah, sure. I think it really just dovetails on from what Zain mentioned around the ease of customer use. Is around making that checkout process as slick as possible. I think one of the things that we're seeing is a big surge within wallet pay transactions via Google Pay, Apple Pay, etc. And it's probably fair to say 70 to 75% of all e-com transactions are now done on a mobile device. So by being able to make that checkout process as slick as possible for the customer, so they don't have to re-enter all of their card details, form fill as well, around whereby it's a one-click option to put their address details in, etc. I think is going to be really critical. I think the other part as well is around tokenization. So this is whereby obviously your card details are encrypted, and historically tokenization has been down at a retailer level. So if you save your particular card details, say with Amazon, obviously you would need to go and re-sign them again or resave them details with a different retailer. I think what we are starting to see from the payment schemes as well is around cross-tokenization, where them card details are shared, but in a very secure environment, which also makes the checkout process really straightforward. And I think the key theme is really around how can you actually reduce shopping cart abandonment rates as well. So, and I think we're all guilty of doing it. We've clicked on a product that we like, and then you go through the checkout process, and then you have to enter your billing details, you have to enter your address details, you have to enter your delivery details, etc. And sometimes you get through that, and then you get buyer's remorse, or rather, actually, I'm going to have a think about this, and you never go back to that site. So I think the real winners, and some of the players out there, like Amazon with their one-click checkout option, are going to be around how you make that checkout process as smooth and slick as possible for the end customer.
Yeah, that's very interesting for sure. I think especially in regards to the attention span, I suppose, as to consumers constantly distracted, lots of ads, checking out is an important feature to simplify and constantly improve for sure. Alexei, if you can kind of share your perspectives in this topic too, please, next.
So in addition, or probably like zooming into what I said in the beginning, I think that the merchants should probably think more and more about distribution, right? Mm-hmm. So with the questions that we raised with the like Amazon growing and with the social media e-commerce growing, you just need to think where the customers of your product will be buying the product like yours in a year from now, right? And you want to follow your customers, and you want to be at that marketplaces or that platforms where they are basically. And I think that this consideration should be one of the like on top of the mind of the merchants, because like a lot of the changes will be accelerating, and like if you will be late to this game, then basically you will see your business not growing.
Yeah, for sure. I think at distribution, but also at the same time, it is pretty competitive. So it's having various things that the guys have mentioned to consider always to keep looking to grow and manage the business. Marion, if you can go next, please. One other thing before you go into that. So thanks a lot, guys, for posting the questions. Keep them coming. We'll cover all of them, as many as we can, towards the end of the presentation and the panel discussion. Marion, if you can go next. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love some great ideas coming through. And I think for me, when we look back at history as well, there have been some really big opportunities off the back of global disruptions. And so when we think about the 2008 global crisis, obviously that kickstarted the gig economy with Airbnb and Uber. And more relevantly, with SARS, that really propelled Alibaba, the biggest e-com platform in the East, into its current status. And so not entirely sure what the next steps will be for us post-pandemic, but I think we can expect something really exciting for e-commerce. In terms of something more tangible, obviously, one of the biggest priorities for consumers and businesses alike has been conserving cash flow in the last year. And I think that means that a lot of people are more likely to consider alternatives to traditional banking systems and looking at ways that they can be more cost efficient in how they set up their businesses, on how they set up the supporting pieces that keep their businesses running. And so, for example, coming from a fintech's perspective, we are seeing a lot of our newer customers coming to us from traditional banks because they recognize that there are a lot of efficiencies that can be made and a lot better customer support that can come from working with a smaller business. In terms of coming from a marketer's perspective, I think this was something that Alexei mentioned earlier, but live streaming is becoming really, really popular for e-commerce. For example, there's a platform called Bigo Live, which I think comes out of Singapore, and that is becoming a priority for them as a social network to really focus on how they can scale their e-commerce products. So they literally have their influencers doing sales of products non-stop on their live stream channels. And I do think that we're going to see that increasingly in Western markets.
Yeah, very interesting. I look at live stream selling, I suppose, online like a new form of QVC, where we've had these channels in the past where you're constantly selling something all the time, but that's taken a new spin in the new world is through social media. Brilliant. Thanks a lot, guys, for sharing your perspectives. Very interesting points and lots of different things. Naturally, there's not just one thing. It's various things that can be impactful to consider when growing your business, especially in the e-commerce space, which is exciting and challenging at the same time.